Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kyra, and if you're new here, I do all sorts of pregnancy style videos, and when my baby boy is born in November, I'll be doing all sorts of motherhood and lifestyle videos too. So if that's what you're into, then don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this video, then please click that like button as well. So today I thought I'd do a video on what it's like being pregnant during a pandemic, especially as a teen mum, as there are slight differences. Obviously I haven't been at work, so yeah, I thought I'd just do a bit of a generic video on what it's been like in the last 7 or so months since lockdown, and although we've kind of come out of lockdown now, the after effects that it's still having, and all sorts of stuff to do with that. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you do, then don't forget to like. Me and my boyfriend found out that I was pregnant in March, and that was before lockdown started. We found out in early March, and obviously lockdown didn't start until like the end of March. It was absolutely fine to start off with because places weren't closed and all my university friends were still at university because we hadn't been told to go home yet. So everyone, like all my support network was still up with me and nothing had shut down, and Cody was still able to come and see me. So when we first found out, the first couple of weeks was a lot better and wasn't really impacted in any kind of way negatively. It was only when we went into lockdown that things started getting a lot worse. A lot of university students made the decision to go back home as courses had then started to go online rather than in person, which is completely understandable as to why they want to go home. But I was living in a flat with 5 other people, and 2 of those I was really close with, and they both made the decision to go home, which was quite hard for me because I was then in a flat completely by myself because everyone else did go home. So I was on the full floor of a student building, which meant I didn't have like anywhere outside to go. There was no green spaces. I wasn't living on campus, I was living like in the city, which was worse due to lockdown because places were shut. You couldn't just kind of go for a walk around campus. I couldn't get to campus because buses were like, you didn't really want to get on a bus, so I couldn't really go to campus. I was kind of stuck in the city like all by myself, which was really quite isolating, and I know that's kind of the whole point, but when you go suddenly from being with like a really good support network and then you find out you're pregnant and then you go to like being completely alone, it's quite a big change, and I think it did really badly influence my like mental health. I had a lot of feelings of loneliness. I spent a lot of my days, obviously Cody was going to work, and it meant that I wasn't able to see him as often, so I spent a lot of the days, especially my first trimester, which is when I was in lockdown, I'd get up in the morning, I'd feel quite sick. Sometimes if I was feeling really sick, I'd have to like get up and like crawl to go and use the bathroom on the floor because I couldn't walk. It was like I felt too nauseous just walking to the bathroom, so I had to like crawl to the bathroom. And yeah, I felt like real alone, especially when you're going for such a big change like that, and then to suddenly be feeling quite sick as well, and to be feeling really uncertain because I had no idea what I'm doing, and although I know a bit more now, I still don't really have any clue of what I'm doing. So it was really quite a big change, and overall it was just, yeah, really quite lonely. The only interaction I was getting was via Cody. It's okay for people who are going back to their families because they don't have their families around, but I was by myself in a student building 7 days a week basically, apart from when, you know, Cody was able to come and, you know, spend a day with me, and we'd go like cycling around Norwich to try and get me out. But yeah, it was really hard, it was really lonely, and it's not a time that I'd ever really want to go back to. I found it really hard to find exercise opportunities, and obviously when you first get pregnant, they tell you that exercise throughout your whole pregnancy is really important, but in the first 3 months of my pregnancy, I wasn't able to really get out and do that at all because I've never been one to like going out really by myself. I have had quite bad anxiety since I was 14, so I get really anxious in social situations, so I don't really like going for walks by myself or going to the shops by myself. If I have to, I will, but it makes me really quite uncomfortable, so I wasn't about to like get on my running gear and go for a run around the block all by myself, and all my friends had gone home and I couldn't go out with Cody and exercise. So I found it really hard to exercise during lockdown, and the normal exercise workout that I had been doing previously was a bit too intense for when I was pregnant, so I didn't really have any ideas of like what I could do. I was doing exercise maybe a couple of times a week. I wasn't going out for walks or anything, so yeah, it really was quite a nerve-wracking time because I didn't know if that was going to impact my pregnancy. I didn't want that to impact putting on too much weight too soon. So yeah, it was all really hard, and that's why when I did manage to see Cody at weekends, we always tried to go for a bike ride because they had like bikes that you could hire like around Norwich. So we'd always try and go for like a bike ride and then like a walk around the town in the evening when people were back at home and it wasn't too packed in the streets. We then had the lovely joy of trying to find a house during lockdown too. Obviously we were living apart, and so when we found out I was pregnant, we knew we was gonna have to try and find somewhere to live together, and that was just 10 times worse due to lockdown and COVID restrictions. You know, you didn't know if they were doing viewings, you didn't want to like put a deposit down on a house that there was no, that you hadn't gone to see. Basically all the viewings are virtual. Some places weren't doing viewings at all, and they weren't even taking applications, so it was really tough for us to try and find a place. When we did, obviously we had a virtual viewing, and then once we kind of figured out we wanted to go ahead with the house, we booked a physical viewing, which at this point lockdown was kind of easing ever so slightly, so we were able to come and see the house, but we couldn't like touch any doors or anything, we couldn't open any cabinets, so it was still restrictive. We weren't knowing entirely what we were getting ourselves into, as we didn't have the freedom to go around and like play around with things and such. But yeah, lockdown was really quite hectic in terms of finding a house, and then we had to buy furniture as well, and now a lot of shops were closed. Like places like IKEA, which is where we wanted to get a lot of our furniture because we were on a bit of a budget. You know, me and Cody are quite young. I'm 19, he's 23, he was 22 at the time, and I was 18 at the time. So we were both like on a little bit of a budget. So we wanted to get IKEA furniture, and IKEA was closed, they weren't delivering, and then when they reopened, they weren't delivering for like 2 or 3 months. So it made it really tough for us. So we then had to go with slightly more expensive shops like John Lewis, and I mean John Lewis quality is amazing, and it was so much easier to put up than stuff that we did eventually get from IKEA, but it was at a cost and it was more expensive, so we had to kind of budget more. It just made things really stressful, but it's all sorted now. The house is finished, and luckily lockdown has like stopped, and although we're still social distancing, the restrictions have eased a lot, and so we're able to buy things from different places and kind of go out a bit more now. And because we've moved out of the city and into kind of more of the country, it's a lot easier for me to go on walks, and there's a lot more green spaces, and there's a lot more that me and Cody can do. But I found my mental health was still not really in a good place at all. I was still barely getting any social interaction, and it was hard for me because my family were all the way back down where I come from in my hometown, and a lot of my friends hadn't yet moved up to Norwich. This was in June, and they weren't moving up until like September, October time. So it's been really hard for the last couple of months, because again, Cody is the only kind of form of social interaction that I've been getting, and although I love him to pieces, it's nice sometimes to be able to, you know, talk to other people, see other people in person. And yeah, so it has still been quite hard on my mental health, even though I have moved out of the city. Moving out has helped a lot, especially because I'm around Cody all the time, so I'm not feeling as lonely, and my pregnancy has kind of progressed. I'm not feeling as sick as I was, so all that kind of stuff right at the very beginning did not help at all. But yeah, I'm definitely in a lot of a better place 100% now. When I first moved out, it was still really hard. I was also worrying so much due to COVID in terms of giving birth alone. Obviously I am very young, I don't know what I'm doing at all, and it's very petrifying, the idea of me having to go into labour in the hospital and be by myself. Now I know at the moment that that's not the case. You are able to have your birth partner with you when you get into established labour at the hospital, but I know that in the past during lockdown, a lot of women weren't able to have that, and they had to give birth alone, and I do not know what I'd do if that was the case for me. I think I'd really quite freak out, and it would send me into a state of panic. I've been doing a ton of research on different like interventions and stuff, but I feel like I wouldn't be taken very seriously because I'm very young, and I feel like the doctors would very easily, you know, sway me or tell me something that I need to do just for the sake of it, rather than, you know, informing me first because I'm quite young. Another worry of mine was how I'm going to deal with seeing friends, because I am pregnant. I'm still high risk for COVID, although the infection rate in Norwich I don't think is very high. I think we've been quite lucky, but obviously a lot of my friends now are coming back up for university started again, and so a lot of them are back up in Norwich, and I'd really love to see them, but it's difficult for me because I am still high risk and I don't know what I'd do if I got sick or the baby was sick. I've only got 6 weeks now until I'm full term, and so I don't really want to risk getting ill or getting, you know, the baby ill. And even like after birth, you know, like it's really important to me that I get out and socially interact with people, because Cody will eventually go back to work, and I think I'll really struggle just being at home with the baby by myself, as it will be quite lonely. So I know it's really important for me to be able to go out and be able to see people and socially interact. I don't know what to do in terms of social distancing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a big worry of mine still, and hopefully that will kind of figure itself out. I have managed to find some really good mum friends via an NCT course that I've been doing with Cody, which has been really lovely. Although obviously I'm like one of the youngest ones there, it's been really nice just having other people that are due around the same time as me to talk to and that are going through similar things. So that's been really, really lovely, and they're all really, really nice. So that's really good. I think overall I'm a teen mum, and a lot of people my age are not going through the same, you know, life circumstances as me, and this is gonna make me mature quite a lot. And I think I am just a little bit worried, especially post baby, in terms of how often I'm gonna be able to see them or how it's gonna be, because my priorities are going to be very different to a friend's priorities. So I'm a little bit worried there, but they've all been so amazing so far and really, really supportive, which is really, really lovely. It is really hard going through something where you don't have anyone really around you that's going through the same thing or has had kids. So yeah, having this NCT group and having other mums going through the same thing has been a massive, massive help for me. But it is still quite hard because there's no one else my age that's going through the same thing, or that I know, like close, that's going through the same thing. So I'm hoping that as baby gets older, I'll be able to, you know, connect more with other mums, even if they're not the same age as me. And we're hoping that's going to happen. So lonely at the very beginning of my pregnancy is because lockdown happened, and then there was really nothing going on online. There was no support really out there at all. So it's definitely been a lot better now as more things are going online. Some things are coming back to, like in person, which has been really, really handy. But I definitely did struggle at the start, and it's a lot better now. One thing that Cody's found really hard is obviously not being able to come into the appointments, which isn't really that nice at all. I completely understand. I would be upset too if the roles were reversed. And I know it's been hard on loads of other mums out there too going through the same thing. Hopefully things are on the up now. Hopefully places are slowly starting to, you know, do more things online, or they're starting to do things in person again in very, very small groups, and I'm really, really thankful for that. So I am still a little bit on edge about how hospitals are going to be running come when I go into labour, because lockdown may happen again, it might not happen again, but restrictions are definitely, you know, coming slightly back into play. So that is on my mind again, and I'm hoping that things won't get as bad as they were. That the main thing is to, you know, keep everybody safe and to, you know, stop the spread of the virus and all that. So yeah, hopefully things are on the up, but it's kind of a waiting game. We're having to just kind of wait and see how things are going. Can't really plan too much because you never know what's going to happen. I think that's everything in terms of today's video on how I felt during the pandemic, especially being pregnant at 19. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. If there's anything you want to know specifically, leave it down there too, and I'll try and answer it in next week's video. But I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please click that like button, and if you want to see more of these types of videos, then don't forget to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video.